what's going on, you guys? Nick here with Nick Strength and Power. I've got a couple of interesting stories for you guys today. The first story that I've got for you guys today, we got an update from your reigning four-time defending Classic Physique Olympia champion, Chris Bumstead, at about 2.5 weeks out right now from the 2023 Mr. Olympia. So obviously a lot of people are talking about this because it's a posing video. It's kind of brief. He's still wearing a tank top and shorts. But we haven't really seen a whole lot from Chris Bumstead in terms of specific posing video physique updates going into the Olympia. We've seen a couple pictures here and there, but nothing really as long as this, I guess. And I've seen a lot of people kind of reading into this, the fact that we haven't really seen a whole lot of updates from Chris, but I still feel like we've seen a good amount, and I think this is pretty comparable to what we saw from him last year. Granted, the first 3 years of him winning, I think we did get a lot more updates from him leading up to the Olympia, but this is pretty, I think, par for the course compared to what we saw from Chris last year. He was a little bit more mysterious for last year's prep than he was in preps past, and I think this is pretty much the same thing, so I'm not really reading too much into the fact that we haven't seen as many physique updates from him as potentially in the past, and certainly not as many physique updates from him as we've seen from pretty much all of the other classic guys, with the exception of Ramon Dino. We really haven't seen much of anything from Ramon in terms of physique updates, but as far as Terrence, as far as Urs, as far as Breon, at this point, we're really getting updates from almost all of those guys at a daily basis right now. And we're going to talk about some of those in this video as well. But how does Chris look here? Again, it's kind of hard to tell. He's wearing a tank top. He's wearing shorts. The only thing you can really tell is he's pretty round, he's pretty full. Again, he looks big. That's really the only thing that I'm gleaming from these updates. It's hard to tell what kind of condition he's in. Obviously, you can see a lot of detail and separation in the little bit of his legs that you can see, a lot of vascularity in his calves, a lot of vascularity in the upper body, but you're not really seeing him pose and seeing the major muscle groups like the back. You're not able to see if he's got a Christmas tree or not. You can't see if he's got striated glutes or not. You can't see how deep the separation in his legs. You can't really see how deep the striations are in his chest. You can't see a lot of the things that would be major indicators of what kind of shape he's in. So it's hard to really extrapolate much of an opinion of what we're seeing of Chris. I think overall, the updates are good. He looks good. He looks big. He's able to come in bigger this year. And again, just because all these guys will have a weight increase, some bigger than others, it doesn't necessarily mean that all these guys are going to come in significantly bigger or come in maxing out that weight increase. I mean, Chris doesn't really have to change much. He's already put together a winning formula. What does it really matter if he comes in slightly bigger? He's already the biggest guy on stage. But to me, I do think he looks bigger. I do think he looks fuller. I think he looks more muscular. That's what I'm seeing from these updates. But again, it's really kind of hard to tell when you're not seeing the complete picture here. But that side profile, that side chest, and that side tricep, it looks like we're looking at an open bodybuilder almost. He's a big dude. And I think that's the biggest thing I'm looking at when I'm looking at Urs, when I'm looking at Terrence, when I'm looking at Breon. That they just don't have this kind of size. And again, we haven't seen as much from Ramon. He's a little bit bigger from a size standpoint compared to Chris. And Urs definitely looks like he's put on some size. But you don't have that same feeling when you look at their physiques as you do when you're looking at Chris here. Like I said, these side poses, you can't really argue with the fact that he looks like an open bodybuilder from the side. He looks really big, and you can't really say the same thing for any of those other guys. Again, maybe Ramon, but we haven't seen really any physique updates from him in the weeks leading up to the show. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below about how Chris is looking here. Better or worse than the physique updates that we saw last year? And what do you think about the frequency of the updates that he's posting? I think it's about the same as last year, and clearly he did more than enough to win last year as well. Now, before we talk about the other classic guys, I want to talk about Brandon Curry again for a minute here. So Abdullah posted another update of Brandon taken at 2.5 weeks out, which is about where we're at right now. So let's read Abdullah's caption here. Abdullah says that we're coming in better than the Arnold Classic 2019 and less on weight, 10 pounds. So I'm not listening to blah, blah, so wait and see after 2 weeks. So to me, the wording of that is that he's coming in 10 pounds lighter. I don't know if that's what Abdullah meant to say, but I'm reading that as saying he's coming in 10 pounds lighter than the 2019 Arnold Classic, meaning he's focusing on conditioning. But I guess he also could have conceivably meant that Brandon is 10 pounds heavier than that Arnold Classic in 2019, which I would think would be what he would have meant to say, but the way it's worded makes it sound like he's 10 pounds less than he was at the 2019 Arnold Classic. Let me know what your guys' interpretation of that status is below. But again, looking at Brandon here, what can I really say that I haven't already said with the past couple physique updates from Brandon? I think that Brandon looks extremely impressive. There's no doubt about it. He looks really good to me. And honestly, still, even though he wasn't in the top 3 last year, he is still one of my favorite open bodybuilding physiques. He's very aesthetic, very pleasing to look at. I mean, you look at how complete he is in this shot, this front lat spread. Just look at the flow of his physique and the taper that he has in this pose. How much lat you can see from the front. This is wide flaring V taper. Lats are super visible. Waist is super small. Legs look good in this shot. I know a lot of people knock him for the legs, but in this shot, they look pretty damn proportionate to the rest of his body here, and it's a really good shot for him. But like I said, what can I say that I haven't already said about Brandon? I think the bottom line is he's been counted out of the conversation, and I think people will be surprised by how well he does at this year's Open Olympia. That's basically it. So let's get back to these classic physique guys. Let's start with Breon here. Breon posting an update. Like I said, I'm very impressed with Breon. I really like his decision to stay in Classic. I don't think moving to 212 was a good move for him. I think his physique is better suited for Classic. He started in 212, didn't do that well there, switched to Classic, and pretty much immediately started winning the Classic Physique Olympia. So obviously his physique is much better suited for that. Now with the increased weight being the primary reason why he decided to stay in Classic, because he struggled with making weight. He will likely be one of the guys that takes big-time advantage of the weight increase. He will probably be one of the guys that comes in significantly heavier than we've seen him in the past, and we probably will see a very different version of his physique compared to what we saw last year. I think he will be one of the guys that looks dramatically different. I still have a hard time thinking, even looking at this update, which I think is really impressive and looks really classic. Obviously, this is probably his favorite classic pose. It's not a mandatory. I think he looks really good, but I still think I've got a really hard time thinking he's going to be back in the top 3. I mean, we just talked about Urs and Ramon and Terrence and how good these guys are looking. And Chris, of course, who I think is going to win again. But as good as Breon looks, these guys that we're talking about, they're all younger guys. They're all in their 20s, some of them in their early 20s. And they're all making vast improvements from year to year because they're so young in their careers. They're so young just relative to anything. And they've got a lot of room to grow. They've got a lot of room to improve. They've got a lot of things they can work on. They're not as seasoned as a guy like Breon. I don't know if Breon is the oldest guy in this lineup, but he is definitely one of the oldest at 43 years old. He, in some cases, is 2 decades older than some of the guys that he's competing against in that first call-out. So while I do think we'll see a better version of Breon because of the weight increase, I don't know if the jumps that Breon is going to be able to make as far as improvements will be the same as a guy like Urs, as a guy like Ramon, as a guy like Terrence. These younger guys that have more room to improve. And Breon's decision to stay in 212 was kind of a last-minute one. It was only a few months out from the show when they made this announcement about the increased weight. So all these other guys that have been focused on doing 212, or on doing Classic rather, since the last Olympia for the entire year, they've had more time to prepare. I don't even know if Breon was planning on competing at all this year up until that announcement. I mean, definitely not at the Olympia, but in general in 212, I don't even know if he was going to compete before the end of the year. So it was kind of even a last-minute decision for him to start prep. And Terrence, I think, is the shortest of all these guys that we've talked about, so he's going to be able to take advantage of the weight increase the most. So I think we're going to see Terrence place ahead of Breon, and I think the highest that we would see Breon is probably 5th. But that's just my opinion. Let me know if you agree or disagree in the comments down below. Now, we also got some physique updates from Urs Kalecinski, of course, showing off his incredible conditioning and his incredible lower body at about 2.5 weeks out from the Olympia. And again, Urs is showing off what he's known for. Striated glutes, deep separations in the hamstrings, cross striations in the quads. He is a bodybuilder's bodybuilder from a conditioning standpoint. He is what people want to see when they say we want to see conditioning. And we know that Urs really pushed it in the offseason, putting on size. I don't know what he's weighing right now, but I know at the Arnold Classic, he told me, I believe he still had like 10 pounds to grow into his weight limit as is. So with the weight increase, I don't know how much heavier we could see Urs, but we're definitely going to see him come in bigger, because when he was 270 in the offseason, it's not like he was super fat or bloated. He was still in shape. And the updates that we have seen of Urs's upper body, he does look significantly bigger to me, and I do think we will see a significantly different version of Urs. And I think as far as maybe a size standpoint, it'll probably be between him and Terrence for who has put on the most size between last year's Olympia and this year, and who comes in that much significantly bigger. Terrence might have more weight to work with because he's shorter as far as the increase, but Urs to me looks like he's put on the most like pure muscle mass, stage weight. And those are the kind of jumps in progress that I just don't think we're going to see a guy like Breon match at his age. So if we could see a younger, smaller version of Urs still beat Breon, on paper, why should we think that Breon is going to beat a bigger, better version of Urs? I think generally in bodybuilding, people say the prime age. A lot of people hit their prime around age 35. It might be different in classic physique, and a lot of these guys are younger, but nobody except Breon in this conversation is past 35, and Breon is 10 years past it. So my point in saying that is a lot of these guys that we're talking about might still have 5 to 10 years of growing and improving and maturing to really reach their prime physique. And that's what we're talking about when we're talking about how young they are and why they can make more, leaps in progress, because most people start to decline after 35, especially after 40. And I made the same argument about Brandon, because Brandon, I think, is one of the only bodybuilders over 40 in the lineup right now. So we're talking about these younger guys making these big improvements. Brandon isn't really a guy that we're still seeing make these massive jumps. So while I say he looks really good in these updates that we're seeing from him, we're still not seeing like a massively different looking version of Brandon. I think his age has a lot to do with that. And when you talk about Derek and Nick, these guys that are in their 20s, they are making big improvements year over year. And we're not seeing the same thing from Brandon. So again, that question comes back to how competitive can he be with these guys making these big jumps that already beat him without making those jumps. I think that same logic would apply to Breon here. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Let me know your classic physique Olympia top 3 predictions. Like, comment, subscribe, click that bell notification icon, all that good stuff. And as always, I love you guys. Appreciate you guys. Nick, Strength, and Power signing out. All right, guys, don't forget to click that like button and subscribe to this channel if you enjoy the content. Also, check out my Instagram at NICKS&P, my Facebook page, which is simply Nick Strength and Power, my secondary YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Vlogs, for vlogs and bonus content that you will not see on this channel, and consider subscribing to my third YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Pokemon, which is all things Pokemon and trading card games, completely unrelated to this channel. So if you're into that, give that one a look. And all links to merchandise and social media will be in the description box below. If you guys want a Nick Strength and Power t-shirt, that will be in the Shopify link below. Have a great day.